On this Tuesday night, the Prime Minister's Buy Canadian defence plan, the multi-billion-dollar proposal to beef up Canada's military muscle.
We've relied too heavily on our geography and others to protect us.
A delightful déjà vu, the Canadian trio striking Olympic gold again. Shots fired inside a hockey rink. The terrifying moments a youth hockey game in the U.S. turned deadly. Canadians killed in Ukraine.
I'll be proud of that kid for the rest of my days.
One grieving father's dangerous mission to bring his son home. Plus, remembering a giant of the civil rights movement.
Because there is but one race, the human race.
Reverend Jesse Jackson's relentless, lifelong fight for what he called the desperate, disrespected, and despised.
Global National with Donna Friesen. Reporting tonight, Jeff Semple.
Good evening and thank you for joining us. Prime Minister Mark Carney unveiled his long-awaited defence plan today, a $6.6 billion proposal to beef up Canada's defence industry. The plan is focused on building more military equipment here at home, which the government says will create 125,000 jobs over the next decade, while also reducing our reliance on the United States. Jillian Piper reports on whether the government's Buy Canadian defence strategy can live up to the hype.
Are you going there?
Touring a local military supplier, the Prime Minister mapping out the new direction of Canadian defence spending.
It's a bold plan to get our armed forces what they need when they need it.
The $6.6 billion strategy pledges to ramp up Canadian defence manufacturing over the next decade, increasing domestic defence contracts from 43% to 70%, boosting exports by 50%, and adding 125,000 new jobs. But there are questions over how realistic those goals are.
They certainly sound great, but I don't think they're that feasible or that achievable in the long term.
Protect Canada's sovereignty.
It's all part of Ottawa's promise to increase defence spending to 5% of GDP over the next decade and work more closely with European and Indo-Pacific allies on security in an effort to reduce reliance on the U.S., our country's largest military supplier.
We've relied too heavily on our geography and others to protect us. And this has created vulnerabilities that we can no longer afford.
Some of Canada's defence contractors say they are confident they can meet demand in new markets, but federal changes are needed.
If there's one thing that we caution about in this whole strategy is it could be undermined if the current procurement system persists.
To help make that pivot, Ottawa is creating a new defence investment agency, which the government says will speed up contract approvals. But the Conservatives argue that move will result in more red tape.
Mr. Carney's solution? Create more bureaucracy. Agencies, councils, units, and other bureaucracies that will actually gum up and slow the system down.
The government says only about half of Canada's maritime, land, and aerospace defence fleets are operational, Jeff. With this strategy pledging to get those numbers between 75% to 85% over the next decade.
All right, Jillian Piper in Ottawa. Thanks, Jillian. Turning to the Olympics now. After missing the top of the podium in the first week, Canada has now added 3 golds in 3 days, the latest coming at the speed skating oval. Mike Armstrong is in Milan for us covering the games. So, Mike, does this mean our Olympic curse is finally broken?
Yes, it does, Jeff. And this one was fun to watch, not just for the competition, but there were some serious smiles during O Canada. There was pressure going into the final. There was none after it. The 3 women who won the gold medal Tuesday in team pursuit were the same trio that won the event in the last Olympics. They came into this race as defending champions with the weight of expectation. It wasn't a problem with the Canadian team coming from behind for the win, although they didn't know it at first.
It was a nice surprise. I didn't know. I was just looking at you and I just make sure I push and we cross the line.
The podium was personal for Monday's Canadian gold medalist as well. Not only did Megan Olam have family and her closest friends on hand to see her win the big air event, but it was also a moment to remember the work she's put in. Oldham finished just off the podium in 4th at the last Olympics. This time she won the gold to go with a bronze she won last week in slopestyle.
Wow, yeah, it's incredible. I think just being able to stand on the top of the podium is a totally different level of excitement. I did not expect to be Olympic champion, so that's really special.
One of the big stories of these games has been Canadians Diana Stellato-Dudek and Maxime Deschamps. Not only was Stellato-Dudek the oldest figure skater in the competition by far at 42 years old, but she was also injured just prior to the games. They finished in 11th place, but could she be back?
I'm the oldest person in 98 years to compete at the Olympics in figure skating, and I think I'd like to make that maybe a 3-digit, maybe 102 years.
Now we can cue the tension as this week advances. Thursday, Canada's women's hockey team faces off with bitter rivals, the US, in the final. But first, Canada's men's team plays a quarterfinal game Wednesday. Their opponent will be Czechia, a team they have beaten once already in this competition. Jeff?
All right, Mike Armstrong in Milan, Italy. Thank you, Mike. Canada now sits in 11th place in the Olympic standings with 3 gold, 4 silver, and 5 bronze. To an update now on last week's mass shooting in Tumbler Ridge, BC. One of the survivors is now expected to return home. 19-year-old Paige Hoekstra was shot in the chest and underwent surgery in Vancouver. Her family says that doctors have told them it's safe for her to be released from hospital. While another victim, 12-year-old Maya Gabala, remains in intensive care at BC's Children's Hospital. 5 students and a teaching assistant were killed in the attack at the community's secondary school. Temporary classroom facilities for high school students arrived today. They're being set up at the Tumbler Ridge Elementary School, though it's not known when classes will resume. And turning to another shooting in the U.S., 2 people have been killed after shots were fired in an ice rink in Rhode Island during a youth hockey game. We'll take a look at this chilling video that shows the moment gunfire interrupted the game on Monday afternoon. Spectators and players scrambled to safety. Police say the shooter also died from a self-inflicted gunshot wound. Officials said there could have been more victims.
We can also tell you that a Good Samaritan stepped in and interjected in this scene, and that's probably what led to a swift end of this tragic event.
3 others were injured and remain in critical condition. Investigators believe the shooting was targeted and likely a family dispute. A second round of talks between the U.S. and Iran has now ended without a deal to curtail Tehran's nuclear program. But Iran's top diplomat says the 2 countries did agree on guiding principles for future talks, which are expected in the coming weeks. But those may come too late to stave off a direct conflict as the U.S. continues its unprecedented military buildup on Iran's doorstep. And as Jackson Prosco reports, Iran sent an ominous message of its own.
With little warning, Iran carried out live fire exercises in the Strait of Hormuz, briefly stopping traffic in the busy oil shipping route, which Iran has threatened to fully block if attacked. All the while, the U.S. continues an unprecedented military buildup, dispatching dozens of fighter jets to the Middle East and sending a second aircraft carrier to join one already on Iran's doorstep. Of course, a warship is a dangerous vessel, but even more dangerous is the weapon that can send it to the bottom of the sea, warned Iran's supreme leader, who threatened a regional war if attacked.
I hope they're going to be more reasonable.
U.S. President Donald Trump continues to insist there won't be a need for confrontation if Iran makes a deal to curtail its nuclear program and reduce its stockpiles of long-range missiles.
I think they want to make a deal. I don't think they want the consequences of not making a deal.
In Geneva, indirect talks between Washington and Tehran yielded what Iran called a framework for future discussions. Iran said it would offer detailed proposals in the next 2 weeks. Iran's president said the country would never abandon its peaceful nuclear program.
The Islamic Republic of Iran has consistently affirmed that it neither seeks to manufacture nor to acquire nuclear weapons.
The last time Trump agreed to a 2-week reprieve, he launched strikes on Iran's nuclear facilities after just a few days.
Trump administration is under no illusions as to what diplomacy will achieve with this regime. I think the maximum the Iranians are prepared to give do not meet the minimum the Trump administration is prepared to accept.
Still unclear is whether Trump has the patience to keep talking. The U.S. is preparing for the possibility of sustained weeks-long military operations, far larger than last summer's one-off strike. Jackson Prosco, Global News, Washington.
Negotiators from Ukraine and Russia also gathered in Geneva for 2 days of U.S.-mediated peace talks. Pressure is mounting to secure a deal to end the war that's now dragged on for nearly 4 years. But the two sides remain far apart on many key issues, including a possible ceasefire. Just hours before the peace talks, Russia launched another round of airstrikes. The attacks injured 3 people in the southern port city of Odessa and caused severe damage to the power grid, leaving tens of thousands without heat and water. A father from New Brunswick is preparing to travel to Ukraine, seeking answers about the death of his son. 24-year-old Patrick Mazarol was killed last year while volunteering to fight for the Ukrainian army. He's one of at least 27 Canadians killed in Ukraine during the full-scale war, according to the Canadian government. But as Heidi Petracek explains, analysts suggest the real number is far higher.
He said, I'm going to come out of there a better person. You'll be so proud of me.
Mark Mazarol didn't know his son had joined the fight in Ukraine until the 24-year-old was already there. 7 months later, Patrick was missing in action.
Now we know that Patrick died on September 1st between 8 and 8:15 in the morning. I got a location within 20 meters where his remain is.
But he can't retrieve his son's body or bring it home until the fighting stops. He says Patrick's remains are in Russian-controlled territory.
Hopefully Putin would hear my message and give us a ceasefire.
Mazarol says Global Affairs has offered some support, but the process is slow. The department offers consulate support, but no financial aid for repatriation, and it doesn't track how many Canadians have gone there to fight. It would only say it's aware of 27 citizens who have died in Ukraine since the war began.
Around 130, 150 fighters at different moments in time.
That's this researcher's estimate. Using the number of total deaths from Global Affairs, that means the fatality rate for fighters could be as high as 20%.
Quite high for a war where the Canadian Army and the Canadian government is not directly involved.
To honor Canadians killed or wounded, the Ukrainian-Canadian Congress gives out these medals. So far, it's awarded 14 Ukrainian-Canadian sacrifice medals, Patrick Mazarol among the latest recipients.
And so it is both an honor for our community, but also a deeply kind of somber and moving and sad thing that we do.
Ever since his son's death, Mazarol hasn't stopped looking for ways to bring him home. Now he's about to travel to Ukraine on a mission to not only recover his son, but establish a non-profit to help other families do the same.
So we can get answer faster, not just for us, but for everybody else.
One father's journey for a son killed in a foreign war far from home. Heidi Petracek, Global News, Halifax.
Accusations of a cover-up by the Trump administration. Still ahead, Hillary Clinton speaks out on the Epstein files. Former U.S. Secretary of State Hillary Clinton is accusing the Trump administration of a cover-up over its handling of the Jeffrey Epstein files. She made the comment in a new interview with the BBC as she and her husband Bill Clinton prepare to testify next week as part of the congressional probe into the convicted sex offender. Vincent Vacavini reports.
In an interview with the BBC, Hillary Clinton accuses the Trump administration of a cover-up and says her and her husband's testimony next week in front of a congressional committee should be done in public, not behind closed doors.
My husband has said he took some rides on the airplane for his charitable work. I don't recall ever meeting him. We have nothing to hide. We have called for the full release of these files repeatedly. We think sunlight is the best disinfectant. Get the files out. They are slow-walking it. They are redacting the names of men who are in it.
The former presidential candidate, Secretary of State and First Lady says their testimony is being used as a distraction.
Why do they want to pull us into this? To divert attention from President Trump. This is not complicated. This is so obvious, and they keep trying to divert.
Despite being the most named person in the Epstein files, President Donald Trump rejected Clinton's claims.
I have nothing to hide. I've been exonerated. I have nothing to do with Jeffrey Epstein.
Meanwhile, the executive chairman of Hyatt Hotels, Thomas Pritzker, has been forced to step down after acknowledging his own terrible judgment in maintaining contact with Ghislaine Maxwell and Epstein after Epstein's 2008 conviction. Los Angeles Mayor Karen Bass has called on Casey Wasserman, chairman of the city's 2028 Olympic Organizing Committee, to also step down. The files reveal Wasserman exchanged flirty emails with Maxwell, though he has denied having any relationship with Epstein. Wasserman has apologized for his association with Maxwell, saying their relationship came before her or Epstein's crimes were revealed. Neither Clinton has been accused of wrongdoing by survivors of Epstein's abuse. They are nevertheless having to do all they can to publicly preserve their reputations, given the toxicity of any association with Epstein and Maxwell. Vincent McAviney, Global News, London.
Beyond the podium, coming up, a closer look at Canada's latest gold medalist, speed skater Ivanie Blondin's Olympic goals. One of Canada's most experienced athletes at these Winter Olympics is speed skater Ivanie Blondin. She was the anchor for the team that won the gold medal this morning in team pursuit. Mike Armstrong has her story.
At an age where most speed skaters have already hung up their skates, she's still competing and winning. 35-year-old Ivanie Blondin is in contention at World Cup stops, World Championships, and as she showed Tuesday at the Olympics. Blondin said she was coming to Italy focused on the podium, but not exclusively.
The end goal is always to medal, of course, especially defending that Olympic title of the team pursuit. And I'm always aiming for the gold for the mass start, so there's that, but I think my other goal is to just have fun. My mantra going into these games is just embrace the chaos.
Now, for Blondin to say that is a big change. She went to 2 Olympics as a favorite, with the weight of expectation on her shoulders. Going into Pyeongchang, there were predictions she could win 4 medals. She walked away empty-handed. There was redemption in Beijing. She won a gold and a silver. But looking back, Blondin says it was her first games where she embraced the moment the most.
I was so young and I wasn't expected to medal, and I had so much fun, and some of my most fond Olympic memories are actually from Sochi because the pressure was off. I was excited to just be there. See all the other sports and played ping pong with Sidney Crosby, it was just wild.
A big change for Blondin going into these games was her training. She started competing in cycling in the off-season. It's been a way to take some of the pressure off speed skating.
I'm highly competitive, and a lot of people, when they describe me, they would say very intense. And it's just the fact that I can do something very intensely during the summer now is it's just very fulfilling for me.
Now, Blondin still has 2 events left in these Olympics. She has the 1,500 meters Friday and her specialty, the mass start Saturday. Her growing collection of medals may still get bigger. Jeff?
Mike Armstrong in Milan, Italy again for us tonight. Thanks, Mike.
We're discussing not what Jesse wants. We're discussing what's good for America and what's good for the world.
Up next, the legacy of civil rights leader Jesse Jackson. Welcome back. Tributes are pouring in for a champion of the civil rights movement. Reverend Jesse Jackson died this morning at 84. Jackson is being remembered as one of America's greatest patriots. U.S. President Donald Trump called him a force of nature like few others before him, while former President Barack Obama said he was a true giant who laid the foundation for Obama's presidency. Eric Sorensen reports on Jackson's unwavering commitment to equality and human rights.
I may be poor, but I am somebody.
Jesse Jackson had a rhetorical flair that stood out just as African Americans were standing up for civil rights.
It's led by Dr. Luther King.
A young minister, he joined Martin Luther King Jr.'s crusade, marching and organizing for racial equality.
I have a dream today.
He was there the day King was assassinated on a motel balcony in Memphis, Tennessee. Jackson, ever ambitious, became one of the most prominent black voices in America.
Don't cry about what you don't have. Use what you got.
What Jackson used was his voice, his charisma, demanding equality for all visible minorities and women. He created what became the Rainbow Coalition, fighting for jobs, affordable housing, and basic justice.
We must turn to each other and not on each other and choose higher ground.
To some, he was a show-off, but he revolutionized voter registration. His grassroots following made him a pivotal figure in American politics when he ran for president in 1984.
Young America, dream!
He made some Democrats uncomfortable, but he expanded the party, made it more inclusive.
Use hope and imagination as weapons of survival and progress.
He had no realistic chance of winning, but Jackson blazed a trail for a future president.
I promise you, we as a people will get there.
In a statement, Barack and Michelle Obama said Jackson created opportunities for generations of African Americans and inspired countless more, including us. We stood on his shoulders.
Jesse Jackson changed American politics. He was a consequential and transformative figure.
He enlisted celebrities to his causes, commanded audiences with world leaders, was at times controversial. But he never stopped marching against the Iraq War, against police brutality, against racial injustice.
I say no justice, no peace.
Jesse Jackson kept the spotlight on inequality, and for 60 years made it hard for America to look away.
That is Global National for this Tuesday. I'm Jeff Semple. People across Asia and right around the world are ushering in Lunar New Year with spectacular parades and festivals. 2026 is the year of the Fire Horse, which represents progress, independence, and perseverance. Thanks for watching. Donna will be back with you tomorrow. Happy Lunar New Year. Have a great night.